All right, so graphing trigonometric function. This is the format of your function, okay? You have to know what each letter represents. So your A represents your amplitude, which is the height. This is your amplitude, okay? The height of the wave, okay, or your curve, all right? That's your amplitude. B, you will use to find the period. So the formula is 2 pi over B, okay? What does the period give you? It gives you the distance between one full wavelength, okay? How fast is it repeated? That's what the period gives you. Okay, C is your phase shift. That represents how if the graph shifts horizontally, left or right. That's your phase shift. And D represents your vertical shift, how the graph is being shifted either up or down, okay? So that's what each of those letters represent. But first we're gonna go slow and start off with the original function, which is sine of x, okay? When you don't see a number, there's a 1 here and there's a 1 here, okay? So what that does that tell me? Amplitude is 1, okay? I'm gonna use the 1 to find the period, so 2 pi over 1 gives you 2 pi. That tells you that the wavelength, one full wavelength, will take 2 pi, so like a full rotation of the circle. Okay, but I need to know how to split up my intervals. So I know I have 4 intervals because you have 4 quadrants. So that means when you get your period, you got to multiply by 1/4, okay, to tell you how your intervals are increasing. So when I multiply 2 pi by 1/4, I get pi over 2, which is 90 degrees, okay? Because remember, 2 pi represents 360 degrees. You're splitting up into 4 pieces, so each interval is 90 degrees, so pi over 2. So pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. What does that represent? 90 degrees, 180, 270, 360. So what I label on the right side, I will do the same thing for the left side, okay? My amplitude is 1. So sine, okay, goes through the origin. You got to memorize that. Sine function always goes through the origin. Okay, so then my first wave will go up to 1 because that's my amplitude, come down to 180, then it goes down to -1, and then it goes up to 2 pi. So this is the pattern, the repetition for one full wavelength. Okay, it takes 2 pi. All right, and one wavelength should have 2 curves. So now I'm gonna repeat the same step on the left side. So now I'm gonna go down, because remember, it goes in opposite. Then up, and then come right back down. So this is the original function of sine of x, okay? Now, let's say that my amplitude is 2 sine of x. As you can see, the only thing that changed is the amplitude. The period stays the same. So that means I'm going to have the same intervals. But the difference is now my wave, my curve, is taller, so it goes up to 2. So now I'm going to just label this 2 and go down, -2. Okay? So I'm going to have the same points, but the only difference is I'm still going through the origin, but now it's going to be steeper. So now it's going to go up to 2, down, and then down to -2, and comes back up. So now this is the new one. Okay, so I will go same thing. It will come down to -2. Still has the same period, so that doesn't change. The only difference is the height of the graph is like taller. So that's what the amplitude does, okay? It changes the height of the wave, all right? So amplitude, if the amplitude is 2, that means the height of the wave is 2. So you got to go up to 2 and down to 2. So that's how the amplitude changes the graph, all right? So now in the second example, all right, My amplitude is 1, but my period now, the B is 2. So I'm going to plug it in to find the period. 2 pi divided by 2 gives you pi. That means the wave is isolating faster, is repeating faster. The frequency is faster. So that means one full wavelength only takes 180 degrees. So I need to find the interval, so I got to split it up into 4. So I am going to multiply now the pi times 1/4, and that gets pi over 4, so 45 degrees. So now I'm going to label my graph 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 plus 45 gives you 90. Then 90 plus 45 gives you 135. And then 135 plus 45 gives you the 180, okay? Basically, you could do 1 times pi over 4 gives you pi over 4. 2 times pi over 4 reduces to pi over 2. 3 times pi over 4 gives you 3 pi over 4. And 4 times pi over 4, the 4's cancels, then you're left with pi. So how you label on the right side, you label on the left side. All right? So now, again, this is sine. So it always goes through the origin. All right? So I'm going to go up, down, down, back up. Okay? Follow the same pattern. Down, and then it goes up and comes back down. So this is how your graph should look. And that's for sine. So you got to memorize it. Sine always goes through the origin. Okay?